In this devotional, I'm going to share with you 3 thoughts from John chapter 10, verses 1 through 6, where I'll answer the question, how do we know the Good Shepherd? John chapter 10, verses 1 through 6 says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him. For they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers." This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. Jesus is talking to his disciples and some followers and some detractors when he says this speech about the Good Shepherd. And he is explaining to them that if they are his sheep, then they will know him. He's trying to get it across to folks that if they are his people, they'll hear his voice, they'll believe in him, and this is how they will know that he is the Good Shepherd. That it's something that's intrinsic within you, that you are one of his. That the Father has given the Good Shepherd his sheep, and none of them will be taken from him. Well, while Jesus is explaining this to the people, they simply do not understand it. They just don't get what he is trying to say. That he is explaining that his people will inevitably follow him. With this in mind, here are 3 thoughts from John chapter 10, verses 1 through 6, answering the question, how do we know the Good Shepherd? Thought number 1, proper entry. Jesus begins his explanation of the Good Shepherd in saying that the Good Shepherd is the one who comes in by the gate. The Good Shepherd is the one who enters properly. He isn't climbing over the wall. He isn't sneaking his way in. He is entering properly. And what this means is that Jesus is saying that he, coming as the Messiah, is coming properly. He is doing so, fulfilling all of those prophecies about the Messiah that the Pharisees, the Jews, the teachers of the law, that they would have known. And because they know these prophecies, they should have been able to identify that Jesus really is the Good Shepherd, that he really is the Messiah, because he's checking off all of these boxes about who the Messiah was, what he was supposed to be, where he was supposed to come from, and Jesus fulfills all of those prophecies. You know Jesus is the Good Shepherd and not somebody else because he is entering the sheepfold in the right way. He is fulfilling the prophecies about the Messiah given by the law. Thought number 2, he knows his sheep. Here's another way you know the Good Shepherd. He knows his sheep by name. So when Jesus comes and he calls his people, they follow him because they're his and he knows precisely who they are. The imagery given here of the shepherd showing up at the sheepfold and calling out to his sheep is one that we're probably not terribly familiar with because most of us don't live in an agrarian society. But Jesus and the folks he's talking to really would have understood this, that the sheep know the sound of their shepherd's voice. So when he calls, they respond. So one way we know that Jesus is the Good Shepherd is because he knows who his people are. He knows who his sheep are, and he calls them out by name. He identifies them. He lets them know, I am the one taking care of you. I am the one caring for you. You need to listen to me. And as Jesus does that more and more, and as you recognize more and more that you are one of his people, you will become increasingly familiar with the sound of his voice. And you'll also find that no other voice sounds like his. Thought number 3, his sheep know him. You know the Good Shepherd because you know the Good Shepherd. I realize it's circular, but here is how it works. Jesus knows his people, and Jesus' people know him. That means that the people who are really belonging to the Good Shepherd, they're not going to follow some other shepherd. They're not going to be swayed. They're not going to be fooled. They're not going to be led off. But they will stay, inevitably, with their Good Shepherd. And this is how we can find out whether or not we are the people of God, are we consistently being faithful? Are we staying the course and following and believing that Jesus is the Messiah? And if you do that throughout your life, guess what? You are convinced, because Jesus' sheep know him. So the question that we're all left to ask is, do I know that I am one of the good shepherd's sheep? Do I know that Jesus Christ is the one who has brought me into the family of God? Do I know this? If you do, then you can have confidence that you are one of his sheep and are the recipients of all of his care and protection that comes along with being his. These three thoughts come from the assigned reading of John chapters 10 through 12. If you'd like to read through the Bible with me, you can do so by subscribing to this channel, by clicking on the link in the description, or by joining the Facebook group Through the Bible, where we are reading the text of Scripture together.